Well, from the Riverwalk to The Walking Dead, a rising star reflects on her beginnings right here in San Antonio as she continues to pursue her dreams as an actress. Eyewitness News reporter Jon Coker caught up with Tamara Austin today. He brings us more.
Tamara Austin was born in a military family, which required uprooting and relocating regularly. From Japan, where she was born, to England, to Germany, she didn't quite get that sense of home until her first encounter with American soil and her first encounter with acting, which both just so happened to be right here in Military City, USA.
I started acting officially in San Antonio. I went to Randolph High School, and Mr. Vance Sarlo is actually the one whose class I just immediately fell in love with, and I started off from there really doing theater.
From her humble beginnings in high school theater to appearing in flicks and series including Banshee, Nashville, Kevin Probably Saves the World, and Dolphin Tale 2, Tamara Austin is a rising star. And as of lately, she's been promoting her latest project, Christmas in Graceland, starring Wes Brown and Kelly Pickler. And she's also been dodging some zombies as Nora in The Walking Dead.
We've given up about 1/4 of our tomato crops to the crows.
We need to plant more stakes and flags.
We could. There's just too many of them.
I did not do this alone, and I will never claim that I did this alone. I worked hard, but I definitely did not do this alone. And it started with San Antonio. That is for sure.
Jon Coker, KENS 5, Eyewitness News.